Yes, here we go. It's P.M.P. It was a 4-1 win for Celtic. Notoriously sort of tricky, apparently, that you used to say that about Tynecastle, but today it was very much routine in what is looking already, certainly league-wise, a routine season for Brendan Rodgers, who's picked up exactly where he left off, and that is winning the vast majority of domestic games that he leads a Celtic side into. Terry, you're back on the bus. It's been a few weeks, mate. A P.M.P. to get you back in the swing of things and a 4-1 win. Not too shabby, is it?
Yeah, good to be back, Bhoycie. It's that international break. I don't know any football fan who enjoys that 2-week break away from club football. Certainly not me. It was great to have Celtic back again. I think this Tynecastle thing, it's nearly becoming a myth, because whilst I do look forward to this game and I always think, oh, the fans are close to the pitch, they're always well up for it, Hearts always give us a game. The record against Hearts is overwhelmingly successful for Celtic, and that game today, I can't remember as routine, a dominant, easy performance at Tynecastle in a long time. That was masterful, and we didn't even, we weren't our rip roaring best, but it was just so dominant and just had complete and utter control of the game. Hearts got a slight bit of encouragement whenever we gave the ball away for them to get a goal back into it. But even then, there was never any sort of sense of they're going to get back into this. We were just so much control of the game. Enjoyed it. Always a slight concern when you're coming back from an international break. As I said, it's 2 weeks where the squad has been split up. All the international players traveling all over the world. Manager even got back to his hideout in Mallorca for a couple of days. So they've probably only really got together, I would imagine, on Friday and started to plan for today. But whatever they done on Friday or yesterday, it done the trick, and back to business again.
Yeah, absolutely. I used the word routine at the start of the show, and I think it was, 4-1 at Hearts. It's probably unfair on the Celtic team to call it routine, Terry, but it was, as you say, so dominant that you find yourself using sort of vocabulary, easy for me to say, like that, though, to describe it. It was kind of like, it was so obvious that Celtic were going to win that today from Matt O'Reilly's goal going onwards. It was so comfortable. You start wondering if there's a bit of your subconscious that says, always look forward to going to Tynecastle. Because like you say, our record's actually pretty good. That's maybe why. It's not actually because it is this really competitive place that we go. It's because we tend to go up, go east there, whatever it is, fucking way. I don't even know. East, it would be there. And we tend to win. And I think a lot of the time that ends up being like why we then go, Tynecastle, favourite away day of the year, that. And it's like, well, that can only be associated with one thing. Winning. That's what I think. So,
no, but yeah, you fall into this trap of thinking, yeah, we always get a good game there. Yes, we might.
Oh, totally.
It's always by a goal. It's tight. You're always going to be pushed. But at no stage today were we pushed at all.
No, couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And we'll do all that good stuff as well. We'll be out of practice for this, Terry. And I was in Edinburgh a day yesterday myself, not for the football, but just on the lash, mate. So I'm dying. But all that good stuff. Gives a like, gives a share, slag the hair, become a member, $1.99, all that good stuff to help the channel grow. Yes, thanks for that. Piesports.com, 12.5% as well at the checkout. Use bus 1888. That's us. Right, okay, 4 minutes in. Matt O'Reilly, the already being described as player of the year, I think you'll see in some quarters. So far, undeniably, I think he's been not just the most improved, Terry, but the most impressive as well. And I think that's fair. I think sometimes it's quite easy to go, when you compare it with last season, it's night and day from a lot of his performances, but it seemed like he was having quieter games, albeit the numbers kind of go against that. I think we should just look at it on its own merits, how he's performing this year. By anyone's standards, including his from last season, he is playing extremely good football right now in a Celtic shirt. He seems to have the shackles off. He admitted after the game today as well, he's got a few breaks of the ball, wee bits of luck here and there, and it's amazing that things when you play with a clear mind, it's amazing how these things start turning in your favour, things like this. It is definitely, mate, in an extreme purple patch of form, to say the least. Talk to us about the finish, because it was stunning, that one today. And I'm sure you would have noticed Chris Boyd so eloquently telling us how difficult a technique it was. Now, see if you'd watched Boyd, right, when he's saying all this patter, if you had it on mute, you would be convinced he was talking about like a shite referee or, you know, I don't know, being food poisoned or something, because he's like so cranky like this, but he's actually praising O'Reilly the whole time. It's the look, though, that doesn't lie, and he is absolutely scunnered. But what a finish from O'Reilly, eh?
Quality finish, Bhoycie, absolutely quality. When I was watching the replay of it again, I was thinking, the type of finish Robin Van Persie got quite a few of, and I know you're wearing a retro Arsenal top there, but I seem to remember Van Persie scoring a goal like that where he kind of lets it drop over his shoulder and then catches it on the volley. And O'Reilly's just doing what he wants at the minute. He's just strutting about the park, doing whatever he wants. Vast majority of things that he's trying are coming off. There's eyes on him, Bhoycie. We talked about the contribution that he made in the Champions League to Kyogo's goal, key moments in key games, and he just keeps turning those out. And the worry will be that if he keeps playing like this between now and January, that we could end up with an offer that is too good to refuse, even midway through the season, and he wouldn't get Player of the Year in that case. But from very start of this season, he just seems to be playing with confidence. I've even got an arrogance, and he's getting the goals. Whereas last season, his numbers in terms of assists were excellent, but he was being thwarted whenever he was having shots. Everything he touches at the minute just seems to end up in the back of the net, and it'll be really interesting to see: is this a purple patch for a few months, or is this now the Matt O'Reilly that we can expect to see week in, week out for as long as he's with us?
Yeah,
I think Bhoycie, just on the goal, I think it's worth picking out the contribution of Palma.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
another one.
He's another one.
So we talked about this before we'd even seen this guy, because we'd signed him for 4 million. None of us really knew, other than a bit of YouTube, but his numbers for that team, who weren't one of the leading teams in Greece, his numbers for goals and assists led us to believe this is going to be another Abada-like player in terms of output. And you can see already when he gets the ball, the first thing he's looking for is, can I get a shot away? And if he can't get a shot away, he's then going, can I get the ball into a colleague in a dangerous position? And there was a chance for O'Reilly, which he took. There were a couple of other times. There was one where he found Maeda, and the balls that he was delivering into the box, I suppose a little bit like the goal that he scored, where people couldn't decide if it was a shot or a cross. And I think just as soon as he gets the ball, he's just all action in terms of, can I get a shot away? Can I get a cross into a dangerous area? And his numbers are just going to keep stacking up. I think he'll be double figures goals and assists come the end of the season.
Well, yes, I think we'll do one at a time. We'll do O'Reilly first, just in quick response. I think a lot of the focus, even in the studio today at Sky, seems to be about, O'Reilly's next move away is looking likely, things like this. So he's bound for bigger and better things. I don't see, for some reason, the same inevitability in O'Reilly departing Celtic at the first batting of an eyelid as I do with other players. I just get the feeling he likes it at Celtic as well. And I think, I know this term gets overused, but I think he does get it, if you like, at Celtic. I think he's very much bought into the whole ethos of the club, what it means to be a Celtic player, what you're representing. And he's getting international recognition as well, Terry. Now, if he had ambitions to have played for England and not the Denmark situation, then you could understand more of an urgency to get down to the bright lights of the EPL and hope to get a call up for England by being under that light. Now, if it's Denmark and Denmark are recognising what you're doing when you're playing Champions League football with Celtic, Spfl football with Celtic, winning trophies, main man in a team, it does change that narrative a wee bit for me. I'm not as convinced the first offer that comes in, say it was a Brentford, for example. I think Celtic convinced Matt O'Reilly more than Matt O'Reilly trying to convince Celtic to let him go. I think if the money was right, Celtic are the type of club that go, you're going, and that's it. I'm just not as convinced that Matt O'Reilly wants out. As for Palma, it's interesting because with Palma, you're right. I already feel in terms of his numbers, he will get double figures for both goals and assists. That'd be over 20 goal contributions he'll end up with this season, and I'm very, very confident he'll do that. There's an interesting yin and yang effect with him and Maeda. Maeda's completely unpredictable. I don't think Maeda knows what he's going to do next. He is very much so as well, the art of surprise. He'll play first-time balls without getting his head up. Sometimes they'll come off, sometimes they won't. But with Palma, you feel like everyone's just executed in a different way. There's a thought process behind everything. It's all just a wee bit more elegant. That through ball for O'Reilly being a telling point. But I quite like the fact you've got that combination on each wing, Terry, where you've got that unpredictability of Maeda, who's capable of baffling himself, let alone any opposition player. And then you've got this sort of more fluid, sort of thought out process on the other side. And of course, with Maeda's crazy pace, you have a different dynamic with Palma, who's going to let the ball do the running more than himself, because he doesn't really have that same turn of pace. I quite like the two different styles on the wings. Palma's complementing the team.
And it looks now, it looks as if Palma will now cement himself as a first team regular. And I think it looks pretty obvious that his best position is coming from the left, which means a change of position for Maeda, because he spent the vast majority of his time at Celtic playing on the left. And it looks as if he'll certainly, whilst Abada's out, it looks as if it's going to be that front three, Maeda on the right, Kyogo in the middle, and Palma on the left. And I think it's testament to Maeda that it doesn't really make any difference what side he plays on. He seems to be able to do the same job. Because of how his game's based, it's based on hard work. It's based on that annoyance factor, not letting anybody settle for a second. And then I suppose the other side of that is he found himself in the right place at the right time to get the second goal today. See the first goal, Bhoycie, as well, just to rewind a little bit on that one. I think it was, if you take it back, Palma obviously gets the assist, and it's a cracking pass from him and a cracking finish from O'Reilly. But the move starts with Scales in the left centre-back position, and Taylor is actually inverted, and Scales plays the ball into Taylor, who then plays it out to Palma, and then Taylor makes a dart. But that change of position for Taylor from the first few games is now just so apparent that he is now playing the role that he played last year for the team. And Johnson doesn't seem to be doing it on the other side. So it almost looks like the manager they've settled on some kind of hybrid where Johnson's doing what suits him best on his side, and Taylor's doing what suits him best on his side. And then you've obviously got Scales, who's playing like Maldini at the minute, and then Carter Vickers, who is coming back, and he looked more like his old self today, just in terms of being a bit more up to speed. But the glory for that goal goes with O'Reilly. Brilliant assist from Palma, but there was a subtle bit of play there from Taylor in that inverted role, which we probably thought the manager was going to move away from. And certainly in the first few games, it looked as if that was the case, but it's definitely changed. There's definitely been some kind of discussion where it's, okay, Greg, this is what suits you best. Let's do that.
I agree. I think that shows flexibility in the manager's approach as well, Terry. This is not someone here. This is somebody who wants what's best for Celtic, and isn't necessarily, I'm not saying other managers don't, if they've been in charge, don't want what's best for Celtic, but at what price they're willing to pay. I think sometimes they would put their own beliefs before what's maybe staring them in the face. Now, that was Greg Taylor. At the start of the season, form had fallen off a cliff. Now, I know he is not Liam Greenlaw's on the bus favourite player in the world, even last season. I thought he had a particularly good season last year. I think Brendan recognised that having adopted him back into a more traditional sort of left-back role, it wasn't working. Okay, Alistair Johnston, he looks like he's got the chops to be playing as a traditional or an inverted right-back. I would rather he were playing that more sort of, what you'd associate with a left and a right back role. But if it means it's better for Celtic for Greg Taylor to play it more inverted, fuck it. Let's do that. And as you then say, you end up with this hybrid thing. I don't mind that at all. I'm quite happy with that flexibility.
Even the last goal, not Bhoycie. Even the last goal, Taylor was up in the penalty box making an absolute nuisance of himself again. And you just seen him; he was popping up in those strange positions that you seen him popping up in under the previous manager. And you're going, "What the hell? How did he end up there?" So he's definitely. There's been a definite change there.
I agree, and I don't mind that because that's also a manager not too proud to say, do you know what? I maybe misjudged that one at the start. I'm going to fix it though quickly. I don't mind that either. I think that's a fact. I like that. I think that's exactly what I'm looking for in a Celtic manager. Okay, talk to me, Terry, about this. Are Celtic the worst penalty taking team ever? I just don't get this. We are I think we must be the only set of fans in the world that when we get a penalty, feel there's about a 30-70 against us scoring. It's the most weirdest. I had no confidence that I was scoring today. And I thought, this cannot be the same for way worse teams than us, sets of supporters. They cannot be watching when their team gets a penalty with such low confidence that it's going to hit the back of the net that we do. It's bizarre.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. No matter what player it is, we don't seem to be able to land on somebody who's able to get the job done 3 times in a row. I was even, thinking back over the many, many years that I've been supporting the club. The greatest player I've seen in a Celtic jersey, Henrik Larsson's penalty record, I think, was only about 60.
Patchy.
Now you would never have gave the ball to anybody else, but even him seemed to be struck by this. And we've been through so many players last season, this season. It's just an odd one. And I was racking my brains trying to think who was the last player who you could sort of hang your hat on. And
Sutton. I don't think Sutton missed the penalty. Missed the penalty for Celtic.
Sutton couldn't have took that many when Larsson was there because Larsson took the most.
The last couple of years, it was Sutton took over for Henrik. Sutton scored a lot of penalties for Celtic. You'd be surprised. I would say he probably took. Let's take a guess. I'm going to say 10. Say he took 10 penalties. I think he scored 10 out of 10. I think he missed one. There's Hetty come in. Says Sutton as well.
I think Andy Walker, penalty taker, McAvenny.
Alan Thompson. And then, of course, when he missed it, Rugby Park. That was that.
Well, who takes the next one? Palma?
There's a suggestion for that in the chat.
Or O'Reilly, given that everything he touches turns to gold at the minute. I think it has to be one of those two. But we have to find somebody who can get the job done. You should be scoring 18, 19 penalties out of every 20. And as you say, we get a penalty, and you're almost thinking it's a bit of a toss of a coin here whether this goes in or not. And something about that one today, I just didn't feel overly confident. And Hatate's last one against Livingston, he scored, but it wasn't a very convincing one. So I'd say that's definitely him off them. They practice against Joe Hart, so they all think they're good at them.
Dealing 6, that is pretty funny.
What was that penalty given for?
Fuck knows, mate. I didn't even want to bring it up because I like a wee bit of spin on the bus. Do you know what I mean? That's pro Celtic, but even that, I'm like,
I've no idea what that was given for. There was a suggestion there was another offence other than the Kyogo, but there was, from what I could see, there was absolutely no foul on Kyogo. He's looking for it, and he goes down. He's anticipating something that doesn't happen, and he kind of tries to make it happen. But I was shocked that went to VAR.
It wasn't overturned. Yeah. And then they sort of threw out the suggestion that is it potentially the next sort of bit of play, and it's Hatate who's been fouled, but they never really showed the replay.
They didn't go back to it.
That showed the sort of the phase of play out, and I wonder if that's it, because it's unusual as well that the commentary team, yet again when Celtic are involved, don't seem to have that dialogue with VAR that they do in other football matches. Where you go, we hear they're checking this for a potential blah blah blah. they didn't seem to have that insight today, and they were kind of guessing as to what the foul was for. We all know how uninterested Sky's production work is at these sort of games. I think everyone's united on that. And I think even when they're showing the replays, the guy who's probably in charge of that's just heard them say Kyogo's given a penalty. So they've just showed you the Kyogo incident. And I'm like, that makes no sense to me. What the fuck that was for? So I wonder if it was maybe for the foul after it, or I say foul loosely, but whatever it was after it, I'd never seen it again, so I really don't know. But it was suggested in commentary it was, yet they never showed us a replay of it. Let me ask you a question, Terry, just for a wee bit of spice in the old chat. Did Kyogo cheat to earn that penalty?
You don't like calling one of your own players a cheat, but I think he engineered the opportunity for a penalty to be bought. He did. He did. I think he did. He's tried to buy it, and for whatever reason, the on-field official and the off-field official have bought it, even though it looked unless it's been given for something different. If it's been given for that incident with Kyogo, then yeah, he's bought that.
Oh, the judge seems to think his leg was taken away from him. There's no doubt. I don't know, Mark.
He's at it. Mark's at it. Sure.
He just likes disagreeing. I don't know. I never seen a leg getting taken out, and I watched every replay that they tell you. Sure, I don't know if Mark's seen a different one online or something that's going to be compelling. But
see, that was 30 seconds into the second half, wasn't it? Roughly.
Yeah. But what a great message that is, though, as well. We go 2-0 up, and we come out not with the foot off the gas, but the foot right fucking down on it, Terry. Penalty or no penalty, we were in the opposition box within 30 seconds. Do you know what I mean? And within 30 seconds, we are causing mayhem already. That's a team that, if it's Postecoglou's team, it's called Relentless. That's they're just relentless. They don't stop, etc. Well, what do we call it under Brendan? Because that's the attitude I'm wanting to see from the team. This was not a 2-0 up, foot off the gas, sit tight, and hopefully they'll come at us. Celtic took the game by the scruff in the second half as if it were 0-0. I like to see that, Terry. It's a good attitude, and it also shows the players are now more on message with what the manager's trying to get across. And if you compare and contrast this to the first couple of games this season where it was negative tactics from Brendan Rodgers, I think we're now seeing that the players, I think, were almost overreacting to what this message was and playing way within the boundaries of what Brendan was actually trying to do. It was just always going to be a bit more pragmatic than Postecoglou's style.
It's a bit more measured and controlled, Bhoycie. So I think whereas Ange's style was just flat to the mat from the first whistle to as far as your legs would allow you, and this Rodgers one is a bit more about timing. It's about little bursts, so going up flat out for 15 minutes, then controlling for 15 minutes. Then if you need to raise it again, you're able to raise it. And you can see little different phases. We're in control the whole time, but we're maybe playing with a different intensity for 15 or 20 minutes if that's what's required. And it's like that game today was just total control for 90 minutes, whereas under Ange, it might have been flat out for 50, 55 minutes, then perhaps the legs are gone, and you're maybe we found games where you dominate it for the first 55 or 60, and then you almost find yourself hanging on because everybody was out on their feet. Whereas the Rodgers approach is it's thinking about the entire 90 minutes and getting through that 90 minutes in a way where you control the whole game. You're not playing at the same intensity for the full 90 minutes, but you're picking and choosing your moments. And I said this many times as well. Brendan Rodgers is an attack-minded coach. There seems to be this myth that Rodgers is almost like Mourinho, where it's a negative approach, and it couldn't be further from the truth. He was one of the first managers in the EPL who were starting to get teams to play with this expansive passing style, and somehow that's got kind of lost, and it became and I think it's probably because of the third season that he had the last time round, where we did just seem to pass the ball for passing's sake. But you could definitely see today that it was all about measure, it was all about control and dominating for the entire 90 minutes. And I think probably where we need to think about next is how can we get ourselves in the, and I know we'll touch on it later, in the Champions League games. Can Brendan find a way to keep us involved in the game for the full 90 minutes in that environment where you're up against a stronger level of opposition?
Yeah, and there's a consideration, I think, with the opposition that we find ourselves against domestically, where Rodgers does seem to treat every game, I think you're right, as if we were playing against, I mean, let's be completely blunt, and I enjoy this part, because Hearts are fucking shite, right? Let's get that abundantly clear. I think we played the game. The game plan seems to be with an element of respect for whoever the opposition is, regardless of their actual real ability. And I think Hearts today showed that you could probably be a bit more arrogant, play with a bit more gusto, a bit of a more gung-ho style, if you wanted, Terry, against them, and take more risks, and you'd probably still be fine, such as their shiteness. However, I still think our game plan is forget who the actual individual opposition is, although there'll be wee parts of the plan to counter whatever strength the opposition have got. I think there is a respect level there where he wants it to be the mindset being the same no matter who the opposition is, and therefore it's not as big a jump when you go from, if you're completely thinking differently in SPFL terms to what you are in the Champions League. It makes that less of a bridge to gap. Do you know what I mean? That's how it feels anyway.
Agree with you. The good thing, Bhoycie, about Hatate then was, despite missing the penalty, he didn't dwell on that, and within 5 minutes he had the most audacious, sublime flick, which helped set up the third goal.
Yes, a beautiful little flick. Do you know what? I love Palma's pass here as well, with the outside of the boot. Coming down that left, that brilliant pass inside. And yeah, that's where O'Reilly says, I got a wee bit lucky. Undeniably, I did get a bit jammy because of it. He goes, I've actually attempted to shoot. He goes, and then it's sort of somehow landed in the path of Kyogo. Kyogo doesn't need to ask twice. But when I see that move there, players express themselves as well. Hatate not letting the head go down because he's missed a penalty. Many might read that in that he just doesn't care. I think until he signed a new deal. If he hadn't signed a new deal by now, I think people would definitely be saying that. And then, just a bit of quality, really, from Hatate. Further quality from Palma with that pass to the outside of the boot. And if you're going to leave it there for Kyogo, he's definitely going to get in on the act, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt once it lands to him. And I think at that point, if the game wasn't already done, it was completely done at 3-0. 3-0. With, what was that, around about the 50th minute? 40 minutes still to go. It's as many as you want at that stage, as many as Celtic wanted to get.
Yeah, I agree. Charles Smith comes in and he's saying, Kyogo, 3 touches, 1 goal. Where do you stand on that, Terry? With the fact that Kyogo undeniably seems to be a player who, for all the ability he has, is having less and less touches, game involvement, shall we say. But the ones he is, he's definitely adopted that more ruthless side. He's got his first Champions League goal this year. We knew he would. We knew he would score this season in the Champions League because that was an itch he simply had to scratch this year. He's consistently been scoring in the league as well already. Are you comfortable though? Yeah, scored in international duty. Great point. How comfortable are you though when he's not getting as involved in the games? Are we now seeing a Kyogo that, albeit when Brendan first took over, we seemed to think was dropping deeper and was going to be getting more involved in the build-up? Has it now went back to Kyogo is now a poacher, an out-and-out poacher for the team, and it's one of these things where, yes, he has a lot of abilities that we would like to see more of, but is he most effective going, he had 3 touches today, one of them's a goal?
I think so.
Not a bad ratio.
I'm glad you picked up on that where he was dropping deeper, because was that the sort of the last few pre-season games and first few league games?
The St Johnstone draw, definitely.
He was dropping deep. He was getting involved, and we were all saying, "Oh, there's a real change here. Brendan's getting Kyogo more involved in the game," and I think he showed that he could do that kind of the game. But it's probably then coincided with this purple patch from O'Reilly, where he's bossing the games in the number 10 position. So Kyogo doesn't need to drop as deep to try and get on the ball and make things happen, because things are happening without him having to do that. And I don't care how many touches he gets. Three touches, 1 goal. I'd settle for that every game, and I'm sure he would as well. And I think he can play whatever game we need him to play. And I would say the manager has decided that having him up there on the end of the moves that Palma, O'Reilly, Hitati, McGregor are orchestrating, that's the best use of him, rather than have him scratching around the halfway line trying to get touches of the ball. Because if he's back there, then who's in the position where he's meant to be? So I think there probably has been something that they've tried, again, a bit like the Taylor thing. They've tried something different, and then the manager has thought, actually, do you know what? I think you're better with what you were doing beforehand, and they've reverted back to that again. And I think it does help that O'Reilly's been in the form that he's been in that role, sitting in behind him.
Yeah, we'll get to the fourth goal quickly. Iwata, he gets it. I thought should have scored before that, but Iwata's finish.
The Hearts goal.
Yeah.
Slack. It was slack, and we got a bit of a warning with Shankland getting the shot away beforehand, and Hart made a decent save. But I mean, it hasn't cost us anything today. But I suppose if you look ahead maybe to Wednesday night in a different game, and you give the ball away on the edge of your box like that, if you get punished against Hearts, you're almost certainly going to get punished against Atletico Madrid. And we don't need to focus on it because we're fans and we can just gloss over it. But I would imagine the manager will be focusing on that part of the game, how we came to give the ball away in that scenario, how we came to concede that goal in a game where we didn't concede chances at all. And that wasn't even really a chance. That was just sloppy play that we gave away possession to the opposition. And it was a good finish from Shankland, to be fair to him. But Wednesday night, we will get punished. If we give the ball away on the edge of our box, you can guarantee we'll get punished, and that the ball will end up in the back of the net.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. With one eye on midweek then, did we see the strongest starting 11 that Celtic can put out today? Is that where we're at? Or is the glaring one still Liam Scales, for all the brilliant form he's in, wouldn't have been part of that equation had it not been for the default of all the injuries, and therefore we probably feel there is a better player there. I think based on form, though, he probably is going to play midweek. I think he will. He will play midweek. I think that 11 that we've seen today is the 11 that starts midweek, and I do think it's the strongest 11 I've seen Celtic go with so far this season.
That was the expected 11. The manager did say in his press conference, and he did say pre-match, that with 7 games in 21 days, that the players know there's going to be a bit of rotation over the next month, which I'm looking forward to, because hopefully it gives us a chance to see some of the other players. The starting lineup today for me was concerning, and I'll tell you why it was concerning. It is our strongest team right now, and that's the concern for me. So on the bench, Phillips, stopgap signing, but supposed to be someone who was of a better level than Liam Scales. Yang, summer signing. Bernardo, summer loan signing, but someone supposed to have lots of potential. One of last year's signings. Iwata, one of last year's signings. Then the players that weren't there: Lagerbelke, Navrovsky, Kwan, Home. That's a hell of a lot of signings that we've made over the last 12 to 18 months that are not in that starting lineup. That's the concern for me. The only one that's in there who wasn't there last season is Palma. And that's a concern just around the summer window, the window of the January before, when we brought in Iwata, Kobayashi. There's a hell of a lot of players coming in there that have not, for whatever reason, been able to get into that starting lineup.
Yep. It makes bad feeling.
The starting lineup today is the strongest lineup that we could possibly put out.
Yep.
And that includes Scales in there on merit.
I can't disagree with you, mate. I cannot disagree with you. I think when you look at the lineup, it's just not as strong as last season's. And the thing is, it's not about it getting slightly worse than last season's. I think it's a bare prerequisite you should be looking for Celtic to have a stronger team than the one they're strongest 11 last season. That should be the bare minimum that we're looking for as fans. So I don't want to be critical of the ones that did play today. I still think it was the strongest 11. There is a compliment in there somewhere, I suppose, when you look at the grand scheme of things. Whereas home, I don't know, is there a reason why? He's obviously, when he got the red card, that was European football. Domestically, is that...
It's made sense, and he got a run out since then. I'm not sure, is there some issue with Lagerbielke? Because he got a cap during the international break.
Fuck.
Nawrowski has been training for 10 days. The only thing about that is, though, Bhoycie, we seem to have gone from that emergency situation around the centre-backs to now we've almost got all of them back, and the only one who's nowhere near close is Stephen Welsh. But you can't have 2, 3, 4 centre backs on the bench, because your bench is about, can you make changes to try and affect the game if it's not going your way? And very rarely do you bring on centre backs to do that. So if Scales and Carter Vickers are the starting partnership, I wouldn't expect to see more than one of Phillips, Lagerbielke and Nawrowski on the bench. And I think people think it's inevitable because of the fee that was paid for Nawrowski that he'll come back in again. But given that he's not eligible for the Champions League, and I think he's probably come back a little bit quicker than was expected. I know he didn't make it today, but it feels as if he's quite close to being back again. But because he can't play in the Champions League, I don't think it's just going to be as straightforward as once he's fit, he comes back in again. I think Scales has got the jersey. There's another sort of school of thought that Liverpool will have insisted on Phillips getting minutes. I can't see that being the case. I can't see that Celtic would have agreed to that. He wasn't getting minutes at Liverpool. How could they demand he gets minutes with us? I think his time will just peter out. I don't see him playing much of a part, to be honest. He was brought in to cover. I can't tell you if he's any good or not. We haven't really seen enough of him. He was playing little bits and pieces. He doesn't seem to have been fully fit at any stage. I don't see a scenario where that gets extended, to be honest. But I also don't see a scenario where Scales gets bombed out for any of those guys who weren't playing today, unless there's a massive drop-off.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Liam Scales, the surprise package of the season, but you're absolutely right. We did a wee feature on it on the TNF on Thursday, talking about the strength and depth we've kind of got at the centre back area now, and we were sort of ranking the 1 to 5, 1 to 6 centre backs in terms of where they were in our pecking order, preferably, or what our preference would be at the back. And I do think it's an area of the team that we've strengthened sufficiently. When you list those other players, though, Terry, that weren't involved today, or either went in the squad or were on the bench, when was the last time we signed a player that you went, boom, that's a bona fide starter?
I think when Palma signed, we probably thought, yeah, he's going to go in because of that void left by Jota. But even then, if you still had Abada, Maeda, and Kyogo, would Palma be a certain starter? Probably not. But none of those other players. I think Nawrowski, because of the fee, you've probably thought he goes straight in there in place of Starfelt. But no, that's kind of where we're going over old ground. But that's kind of what we wanted this summer, was a few players where you just thought, right, he goes straight in, he's definitely playing, and unfortunately hasn't happened. We're stuck with last year's squad, albeit we've probably got a bit more depth, but we don't have anybody who's come in who's better than what we already had. I don't think Palma.
We brought in players that were much of a muchness in terms of their ability.
I think so, but players who have got potential, but there's no guarantee with potential. Whereas some of the signings of Carter Vickers and Jota, because we'd had them on loan, because we knew what level they were at, when we then made those permanent, you knew what you were getting. You knew the level of quality you were getting. But even prior to then, Bhoycie, you probably didn't. Whenever we signed Hatate, we didn't really know what we were getting. When we signed Matt O'Reilly, and you're talking earlier about where his long-term aspirations may be. 2 years ago, that guy was playing in League One in England, and now he's strutting in the Champions League and on the verge of getting a cap for Denmark. So, despite where people might think his long-term future is, that's probably a really meteoric rise for him in terms of where he was playing at in England's League One. He's then playing on the Champions League. He's then getting called into the Denmark squad and will probably now stay in that and get caps. But again, when we signed him, were we thinking he's definitely going to become a player? A lot of those ones, Kyogo probably, again, and not because we knew anything about him, but just because of the fee. So probably with a lot of these guys, we're basing it on the amount that we've paid for them rather than what we knew about them before they came in. But I think the fact we signed so many players over the summer and we now feel that our best team is the one that we had out today is a bit disappointing.
I tend to agree with that. But also, though, to be balanced, we can listen to Kevy Boy earlier. He said, Aberdeen away, Rangers away, Hearts away today, Motherwell away. They're all statement wins. It's been done by this group of players that we've currently got, albeit we don't think they're as strong an 11 as, in terms of first choice 11, as what it was last season. But when you look at those on paper, with Easter Road up next, it's been a very challenging opening round of fixtures that Celtic have been given. Now, I tend to try to always be of the notion, of my mindset that we've all got to play these teams anyway. You've kind of got to do it.
It doesn't always work out.
It's not always like that. No.
Because of the split, it's not like that.
Exactly. And I hear that part of the conversation. I've never liked to use it as like an excuse sort of thing. But this year it does when you look at the opening round of 11 fixtures, round one, if you like, in the league. I mean, when you see it on paper like that or written down, by Kevy there typed up, it's like fucking hell. And then Easter Road next. And this is all in the first round of fixtures. It couldn't have been more challenging. The players are rising to that level of that gauntlet that's been thrown to them, shall we say.
Are you suggesting the fixture computer was manipulated in any sort of put it like this, they are the hardest fixtures that you could have, and I'll add one onto that. Livingston away as well.
Yeah, sure.
They are the hardest games you could have. Those six, is that 6 away fixtures then? 5. Aberdeen, Rangers, Hearts, Motherwell, and Livingston. Those are probably the 5 if you were picking out the hardest games, and then Hibs would be the next one. So the hardest 6 away games, and we've got them as pretty much our first 6 away games. Chances of that happening are very, very slim. But what it means is it guarantees you that you also have those away games a second time in the third set of fixtures. But then depending on what way the league splits, you then potentially have 3 away games against a selection of those teams as well. But the good thing is that the overriding thing is it doesn't really matter what the computer has thrown at us. We have gone to every single one of those places and picked up the points, which some of those games played out different to others. Some of them were a bit, the Motherwell was a bit smash and grab, but we've got the job done. And what should then happen is in the second phase of league games is that we get all of those teams at home, and I don't see any way that we don't extend our lead over that period.
No, I agree. I think you're absolutely right. I think the way the second round will work is going to be tougher for our nearest title rivals across the city. It's going to be trickier round fixtures for them, by default. And
it's quite ironic, Bhoycie. It's quite ironic that the only game we've dropped points was the home game against St Johnstone, who at that time were probably the worst team in Scotland, losing to lower league level teams in the League Cup and things like that. That's the ironic bit of the whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah, Stirling Albion, remember? It was, they beat them 4-0 at McDermott Park. That was mad. Here's another one for you, Terry. Despite the comfortability of another win in notoriously tricky Tynecastle, whatever you want to call it, has there been almost, and maybe it's just me, I'm going to ask the question anyway, has it been, because Brendan's here before, almost a bit of a flat sort of vibe? Is the wins like today, 4-1 at Tynecastle, 1-0 with the worst Celtic team, or worst Celtic back four ever to start at Ibrox, 3-1 was it at Pittodrie, 3-0 at Pittodrie, something like that, 3-1. Are these wins getting the credit they deserve? Or is it because it's almost been like Brendan could only lose really this season, couldn't he? He has an expectancy level on him way beyond what anyone else does. And because he's been here before, there's not that same, oh, let's see what this guy's all about. Do you know what I mean? You're not finding anything new out about the manager. So these wins, are we celebrating them enough? Or is it just a natural thing when it's a manager's second phase? I always point to Lenny's the second season he won the treble, 5 trophies out of 5 after taking over for Brendan. I don't think he gets the credit for particularly the second treble that he won on his own. You know, when he won all 3 that season, I know the league was chopped or cut off a wee bit earlier, but that was a treble on merit. I think for some reason, again, he could only lose when he was Celtic manager that second time. Has it been a wee bit flatter this season than it should be when you consider some of the performances, some of the results that we've picked up?
I think, Bhoycie, there's almost a sense of, because he's Brendan Rodgers and because he's what we perceive to be an elite level manager, he's almost like a bully in the playground, where it's not really fair for him to be in Scotland because he can't lose, because he'll have the best squad of players and he's the best manager. And it's almost like he's just a bully. If he comes up here, because he won everything first time round, and I know he's already failed to get us through in the League Cup, which you would expect Rangers will go on and win, and that'll be celebrated as if it's the Champions League, I would imagine, whenever that comes round, and I fully expect them to do that. But it's almost as if, well, of course he's going to win most games. Of course he's going to win most competitions because he's Brendan Rodgers, and if he comes up here, it's not really an achievement for him to win things, because he should win every single competition that he enters. And it's not like that. I mean, we've talked about this before with Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, all of the leagues many of the leagues across Europe now are similar to Scotland, where you've got one team who wins the league most years. But if you look across those 2 examples that I've given, how many times have Paris Saint-Germain done the double, or Bayern Munich done the double or treble? Very, very, very few. Very few occasions that those teams have been as dominant as Celtic have been. And their leagues, albeit on a different scale, are very, very similar to the Scottish League, where there's one team who have got the resources to be dominant, but very, very few occasions is it that they go and they do a clean sweep in the way that we've done over the last 3, 4, 5 years. But Rodgers he won't get the credit, because I think people think that's what he should do. He should win every tournament. And if we don't win one, then it's almost that's a stick to beat him with, because of the success that he had previously.
Who's the stick? Who's holding the stick, Terry? This is where I find it interesting. I think a lot of the underwhelmness comes from within our own sport. I think somehow, I think I've been guilty of it as well, I'm not going to lie to you, where, no, I kind of watched it today. See, once we were 2-0 up, I didn't lose interest. I was watching it, but I was okay. Like, do you know what I mean? It was weird. I wasn't like, oh, show me more. Like, I'm right into this now. 2-0 up at Tynecastle. Here we go. I can't wait. I'm buzzing now. I kind of was like, meh, it's done. I know we're going to win the game now. And for whatever
You
reason.
don't have enough scars from the past, Bhoycie. You don't have enough scars from the past.
Well, I do. I mean, that was my first experience as a Celtic player in the 90s, mate, you know? But
Aye.
I don't know. I don't know
I know
why.
what you mean. I know what you mean. And
Hard to explain.
yes, there's almost like, if I try to explain, sometimes, like today, for example, I was looking forward to this game. Not because, because we haven't played in 2 weeks and all of that kind of stuff, but also because I thought it was a game we were going to get challenged in. And there's almost a part of me wants some of these teams to make us go up a gear to win it.
I agree with that.
You know what
I
mean?
totally get that's a great way of putting it.
It's almost a sick sort of thing where you want us to have to raise
Earn it. You want to have as a fan. We're addicted to that.
Right.
Being on the brink of failure, mate. Being on the brink of glory. These are feelings that the obsession with Celtic is like that.
I want us to be pushed.
Totally, mate.
Domestically, I think because of the success that we've had over a prolonged period of time, a lot of these games, you're turning up and you're just sort of expecting to go through the motions where the other team will frustrate as much as they can. Then we get the breakthrough, then the game's done. It's kind of almost, it's that routine that we talked about at the very, very start, that word routine. I think all SPL games are now almost routine. And I actually enjoy it when something happens in a game that makes us have to work for it. So almost, and it's hard to describe, but the day Joe Hart gets sent off, part of me's thinking, well, do you know what? We're gonna have to find a way to make sure we win this. This is going to be interesting. It almost perks
it piques your interest.
Or
yeah.
if the other team take the lead, you're thinking, right, now we're going to have to work. This is going to mean something if we're able to turn this round. And I think that's probably, again, if I think back to my youth of supporting Celtic, you would never ever have thought of that because there were periods there where you were completely starved of success. But now, because success has become so regular, there's actually some kind of enjoyment out of another team pushing you and you having to find a way to get the result.
And with Ange Postecoglou, for example, I think because he was an Australian manager, a relatively unknown, as it were, there was almost an underdog vibe about him at the time. I know, hey, you know, a lot can change in 2.5 years, but Ange Postecoglou, now if you were saying that, you'd be going, what? He's the apple of the eye of the Premier League now in England, and that couldn't have been the case. But I think when he first came in at Celtic, I think a lot of people bought into the fact that there was a bit of jeopardy here potentially because he's playing this crazy type of football, which is bold as brass. He is an unknown. It looks like it was a last-ditch Larry appointment. Now, these are things that should be concerning you when you look at it in cold daylight, right? What, he's going to play a completely different setup to how we want, get everyone to change their tune, comes from an unknown league. These should be concerns. Instead, we rallied round it. It made the viewing of the Celtic matches more compelling because it was, we could fucking go further behind today, or if we win, it's like heralded as a better achievement. I think with Rodgers, there's almost this kind of like, once we go 2-0, mate, I know we've won. I'm not on the edge of the seat anymore. I'm just like 4-1 at Tynecastle today, mate.
Nah, he's always going to be seen as a flat track bully.
Yeah,
he is.
You're right. You're very right, mate. It's interesting. I just thought I'd ask you on that, Pikes. I was like, I don't like to be unappreciative of what we've got. Do you know that? I think it's just like a gambler, mate. You know, a lot of gamblers, if they win in the first 5 minutes, mate, they're not satisfied with that. They needed to have been
that doesn't give you your buzz. You don't get your
That's not the buzz. They need to be put through the mire.
It's a very interesting point of conversation. Yeah, you need to get your buzz, and if it becomes too routine and too easy, then you're not getting your kick, you're not getting your fix out of it. It's an interesting one.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll have that problem on Wednesday night, Bhoycie.
No, absolutely not. And of course, that's just how it is, I suppose, with Celtic, isn't it? You go from routine to.
What's your thoughts ahead of Wednesday? How are you feeling? I think this is the strongest team in the group by a distance.
Yeah, I think it'll be a comfortable Atletico Madrid win, mate.
Do you?
Yeah.
The boogies are giving even money Atletico Madrid if you fancy that. Not that you
really?
could ever back. Not that you could back against Celtic, and I do love a bet. And evens Atletico. It's a decent price, but I'm never going to do it. And to be honest, I always go into these games thinking we're due a big performance in Europe, and we had a relatively comfortable day today. They had a comfortable game last night. I think the team they were playing had a man sent off after about 20 minutes. Griezmann got 2 or 3 goals, but I'm looking forward to Wednesday night. I'm hopeful. It might just be that the team that we probably don't expect to take anything off might be the team that we get something off without when we haven't got points in the first 2 games against, which I think there's a gulf. There's a real gulf between Atletico and Lazio and Feyenoord. The interesting thing about Atletico are that they thrive on defending. They thrive on the opposition having the possession. They win game after game after game with 30% possession. So it could be a strange one in that we're playing one of the best teams in Spain, but we might get a hell of a lot of the ball, but we're probably our most vulnerable against this team when we're in possession of the ball and we're creating, because the minute that breaks down, 2-3 passes, that ball's going to be in our penalty box.
You're right, and I think with these guys as well, the quality that they have when you look at the like the Griezmanns of the world and that. I mean, these guys can punish you, mate. Like when they get their 3 touches, they're 2 goals, mate, not 1 goal. You know, in a game.
We're talking about Brendan being seen as maybe a bully in the SPL. He's got to relish this opportunity, because this is him up against Simeone, who's a real character of a manager, and this is Brendan's opportunity where he's the underdog. And
well, he's the whipping boy of the Champions League, isn't he, in terms of managers? And I hate saying that because, I am very much Team Brendan as the manager. I love that. Thanks for reminding us, John Paul Murray in the chat. Brendan has the position and he's our manager. Don't talk about Ange. I think it's inevitable comparisons with the last manager, and this one's going to be made, John Paul, to be honest. But what I would say about Brendan is, whilst I've always been so supportive of him, that is a fact, Terry. It's a fact that he has the worst managerial record in the Champions League. 2 wins, I think it is, in 20 games. He's going to be more than acutely aware of that. He will want to change that.
Yeah, and all these records are there to be broken, Bhoycie.
Absolutely.
Now, we could be sitting here on Wednesday night. We could be sitting here on Wednesday night at 10:30 with me half asleep, and I'm saying to you, didn't I tell you Atletico was a great bet at evens? But I'm still hopeful. We could be sitting here on Wednesday night going, we weren't expecting that, were we, Bhoycie? We weren't expecting that. Didn't see that one coming.
I would love that, mate. I would love that. I mean, we were all still at the end of the day confident we'd get more than the 2 points.
And we need to get those 2 first.
I know. It'll probably be the dead rubber will beat Feyenoord. A vintage Champions League display, a 3-0 win against Feyenoord, and a dead rubber. We still finished bottom of the group. And
even though we've no points, I just can't. You can't help yourself think, if we manage to get 3 on Wednesday night, where does that leave us after 3 games? If we got another 3 against Feyenoord, is that enough to sneak 3rd place? Maybe not, but we'll see. Well,
we will see how Wednesday will go. We'll be back on the bus tomorrow night for the Monday Club with Jonathan at 7. He will be doing the whole Russell par, so we can look forward to that. Terry, great to have you on the bus for the P.M.P. We're off skate. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, and as always, keep your eye on the board.